I'm not even on a script for this one. Why can I say this? Hey guys, sit back, relax, and let's talk about why I really dislike NaNoWriMo. This has been like a long-standing kind of opinion of mine ever since I heard about NaNoWriMo, and I've had a ton of clients who have come to me and asked me about NaNoWriMo, and have actually produced good material because of NaNoWriMo. And for those of you who don't know, in a very, very simple way of explaining it, NaNoWriMo is National like November Writing Month or something like that. I don't know. But basically, you're supposed to write a 50,000 word manuscript in a month. The idea behind it, I think, isn't bad at all. Getting people kind of like in a dedicated space and time to be able to create a manuscript. And the reason I think the idea behind it is fine is because a lot of people thrive on having structure, which is crazy because when we're younger, all we want is independence because we have no independence when we're younger. It is only when we get independence do we realize how valuable the structure was to achieving things. And when you're doing something creatively on your own that no one is forcing you to do, sometimes getting the motivation to have the kind of will to make a whole freaking book is difficult, right? And so then it becomes kind of like almost like someone else is pushing you. And that's why NaNoWriMo, I think, has the success that it has had, because it acts as kind of like a self-contained challenge to write 50,000 words in the month of November. And you usually do it with friends, you do it with other writers, you compare notes. And the goal obviously isn't really to produce a complete polished 50,000 words. A lot of people don't get anywhere near that. A lot of people really just start writing during NaNoWriMo. They may get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 words, which would still be really good. It's so much better than nothing. And I think because of that, those are all like the good things that I see about NaNoWriMo. But there are a lot of things from an editor's perspective, from a psychology perspective, and from a writer's perspective that I actually like really don't like the concept or idea, because I think it's more destructive than it is good. Because I've written a book in a month. I wrote a 30,000 word book in a month, and it was some of the best fun I've ever had when writing a book. But I was not your typical study case. To give you a perspective, before I wrote this book, which was 30,000 words, and then I wrote the sequel book to that book, I think like a month and a half later, I wrote that sequel in 6 weeks. So basically in combined time of writing the two books, it took me right around 9 weeks to write 60 some odd thousand words, which basically was a complete story because it was the prequel and the sequel. I had already been in the situation even before going into my writing of a book in a month, where I had written hundreds of thousands of words. I had been taught and worked for a best-selling author as his editor. So I was kind of like, at this point, even while being young, steeped in kind of like the writing space. And I knew what it was like to basically work jobs. I had like 2 jobs and I was still writing. I'd be up writing till about like 10 or 11 o'clock. I'd go in my workspace because I had an office key, and I'd just be in there alone writing on Fridays and Saturdays in college while my friends were off like partying or doing other stuff. That was my idea of writing. It was definitely, I think, my therapy. It was the way of being able to make a story for me, by me, that other people would happen to enjoy. And then when I finally did finish that book, which was like the 187,000 word book over 18 months, I was like, I want to write something smaller, something much more simple. And then I chose to do the 30,000 word books, all of which you can find on my website down below if you want to check those out. But anyway, I was able to do all those things, again, because I came from a very, I think, unique and particular background when it comes to writing. With NaNoWriMo, it encourages people basically of all backgrounds and demographics to be able to type like 50,000 words out in a single month. The danger of that, to me, is the real threat of that not being enjoyable for a lot of people. And it'll be most people's first attempt at trying to write a book. And that's really, really daunting. You know how many words 50,000 words is a month? There's 30 days in a month. So if you wrote 2,000 words a day, that's 60,000 words, right? So you're writing just probably like 1,500 words. If someone wants to get a calculator and like check me, they can do that. But like basically like 1,500 words a day. I don't do that. I'm a professional author and writer. I write tens of thousands of words a month for YouTube, for my books, right? For editing manuscripts that I give back to my clients. I'm writing all the time. And I don't even think I do like 1,500 to 2,000 words a day. And so just to have a regular person do that, I think the risk comes in a person's first foray into writing being that, and them getting burnt out, and then having that negative connotation with writing whenever they then try to do it again. Because a person might literally think like, oh, this is what writing is. This is the feeling that I get when I think about writing. Because some people might feel pressured. And not to mention, when you get a bunch of people who've never written a book before and you ask them to write a 50,000 word book in a single month, that work is not going to turn out good. And again, I know the point of NaNoWriMo is not to have like immaculately polished manuscripts by the end. It's to have something by the end. Then why not just have that be the goal, right? Like I don't know, maybe I'm in the wrong here and people who are better educated on the subject can let me know. But as far as I'm concerned, having the goal be like, oh yeah, get 50,000 words of a manuscript, that's like the whole thing. It's write like a book. Or if you can't do 50,000 words, get like something complete. But like, I wouldn't want to do that. And no one has to do it that doesn't want to, but I think there is a trap. There's a trap that comes from doing that kind of thing. I've talked to a lot of clients who've had a lot of fun during NaNoWriMo, but in that fun, they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that again. And the work they give to me shows that they didn't have fun doing it. Real fun writing. They had fun of discovering that what they were capable of, but they didn't have like fun during the writing process because of the pressure that they felt, right? When you're holding yourself accountable to other people that you're doing NaNoWriMo with, when you're like in this idea that other people can do it, why can't I do it? There's a lot of stuff that goes on with it. And genuinely, I think people should just have their own time to be able to write what they want to write, how they want to write it, for how long they want to write it. I don't know, it should be enjoyable. It should be fun. There shouldn't be anything about like pressure about a manuscript. Sure, you should be driven and motivated. That's like a certainty. But I don't think you should necessarily feel like a pressure. And if you can do NaNoWriMo without pressure, without feeling burnt out, you know, anything like that, more power to you, right? Like you're phenomenal. Like I give it to you, like that's great. But I know a lot of people can't. And so that, I think generally like my issues with NaNoWriMo is that it's from a writer and psych perspective, it's all about like producing the content, but not about the experience of producing the content. All the things that go into making a really good book. From an editor's perspective, I guess NaNoWriMo is really good for me because people need an editor for stuff that they write during NaNoWriMo. But like from a theoretical editor's perspective, Lord have mercy, these manuscripts are generally terrible because people aren't, it's quantity over quality. And that's like the thing that gets me so much. I am not a quantity person, never have been. YouTube is trying to push me to be a quantity person. I'm trying to do both. It's not easy. It is just my predisposition. Anytime I get on camera, anytime I do anything, I'm trying to make the best video I've ever made. It is very much, if you're making art, if you truly want to make art on the written page, this is a quality type of achievement, not a quantity type of achievement. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people get lost in with NaNoWriMo. You take as long as you need. Sometimes you're gonna write a story, you're gonna plan out a story during NaNoWriMo, during any part of your life that is 10 times bigger than anything you thought. That's what's happening to me right now. I am going to write a 300,000 word book, which I thought was gonna be 90,000. But that's just like how life happens. That's how creativity happens. And that's okay. Getting 50,000 words, if you can, perfect. But I do not pressure yourself. Do not feel like you have to conform to anything just because other people do it fine. Other people do less than you too. Remember that, right? Like whoever is the person that you're shooting for to achieve, you're that person for somebody else. So those are just kind of like my thoughts on NaNoWriMo. I know a lot of this basically comes down to it's a personal thing and however you approach NaNoWriMo is how you approach NaNoWriMo. But I truly do believe you should use that month in November to push yourself to do work, but just be pushed to do something, right? Even if it's one chapter, even if it's 10,000 words, right? Don't let somebody else set your goal for you in writing because at that point, you're not going to like it. So that's my 2 cents. If you like what you heard, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my books on my website. I'll leave a link in the description for that, or hire me on for editing services. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon.